This is the last episode of season 2.
Yep, absolutely.
Mate, it's been a good season. We've had some phenomenal books, and it means we're going to have our best of season 2 recap episode next weekend.
I had a lot of fun. There was some bloody good books in there. And not only is it our last episode, this is the last chance to enter the Bonanza Extravaganza competition.
That's it, man. So entries are going to officially close May 31st, and we're going to record our best of episode on about the 3rd of June. But yeah, entries officially close May 31st. 3 ways to win, and you can win all, we should have counted them up, mate. 48, 49, 50 books, however many there were from season 2.
Something along those lines. But yeah, just go to iTunes or anywhere you can leave a review, and that is one way you can enter the competition.
That's it. So leave a review, or you can fill out the survey, whatyouwilllearn.com/survey.
And the third way is buy a book and send us a link or send us a photo that or tweet to us or anything like that you got the book. So in the show notes, click on full description and you will see a link which will take you direct to the website where you can go in the competition all 3 ways. And from there, it's bloody easy. Probably only 2 to 3 minutes investment per entry. So get on it, and this is your last opportunity, and you could win 50 bloody awesome books.
Welcome back to What You Will Learn. My name is Adam Ashton.
And my name is Adam Jones. Today we're doing a bit of a very popular book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, a counterintuitive approach to living a good life by Mark Bad Boy Manson.
Mate, we are an explicitly rated podcast. There's often a few fucks get slipped in there. Just a quick warning, there's going to be a lot of fucks in this.
It's going to be a lot of
This book is just littered with fucks. So, yeah.
So we've got every reason to say as many fucks as we want this time.
Exactly.
Sometimes we just go crass and we say fuck way too many times. But this time we can do it.
So, yeah, just a warning if you're offended by fucks, this is not the episode for you. Or not the book for you either. Mate, what is giving a fuck? Basically, he says that his quote here, the key to a good life is not giving a fuck about more, it's giving a fuck about less, giving a fuck about only what is true and immediate and important. So he says we've got all these messages, everyone wants us to give a fuck about their thing. For us to have a good life is to give a fuck about less and only choose what we give fucks about.
So when you see this on the bookshelf, it might look like it's all about giving a fuck about nothing, walking around, just not giving a shit about anyone or anything or anything like that. But it's kind of a subtle way of getting into of selling the idea of prioritization. That's what the book's all about.
Yes.
So it's along the lines of the one thing and essentialism and kind of saying no to the things that don't really matter.
Yes, very much so, man. He's saying that it's not about giving no fucks whatsoever. You might think not giving a fuck means don't give a fuck about anything. It's just choosing what to give a fuck about and then cutting away everything else.
Absolutely. So the book kicks off into the idea of what the whole self-improvement culture in the world is like right now.
Yeah, he says that success and self-improvement often occur together, but it's more correlation than causation. It's not that everyone who follows this self-improvement stuff becomes successful.
So self-improvement today is always, it's really focused on these unrealistic expectations. It's all about being happier or healthier and being better than the rest. So it's all about the things you don't have. And he even says it's like, this expectation that you got to go out there and crap out a 12-carat nugget of gold before breakfast each morning while kissing your selfie-ready spouse and 2.5 kids goodbye. So
that's it, mate.
Just shitting out gold nuggets. Man. You're not going to be shitting out. Your shit's brown.
It stinks, mate.
Yeah.
Mate, they want us to be smarter, faster, richer, sexier, more popular, more productive, more envied, more admired. There's just everything that, we have to be the best at everything. And that's where he says that, the traditional self-improvement path goes wrong.
Yeah, that's right. So when you stop and really think about it, this conventional life advice, all about the positive and happy, luffy, fluffy bullshit we hear all the time is fixated on what you lack, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. So you think, I want to become rich. It's actually focused on not having enough money. Or I want to have better relationships. It's a focus on not having a porn star 10 out of 10 wife. So he's saying that it's all focused on what we lack. And that's why he says it's pretty much a bad way. You're always thinking about what you don't have rather than appreciating what you already do have.
So you, at the end of the day, you're walking around as if you're lacking. But he says the smallest dog always barks the loudest, and that's a saying you pull from Texas.
Mate, it's a Texas saying, as you just said, that the smallest dog barks the loudest. So, he says that the richest woman doesn't have to go around and tell everyone how rich she is, or the best looking bloke doesn't go around and tell everyone how good looking he is. So it's not like the big dog doesn't need to bark. Everyone knows he's big, whereas a small dog needs to go out and tell everyone how big he is by barking loudly. So it's the guy who's, trying to hustle his way to the top, who isn't making any money, who has to go and show everyone on Facebook how much money he's making. He's just ran in the cash.
Yes, I think you tied it in. Yeah, I think you tied that one in pretty well. So it's
it's almost like
your person who posts in their Instagram profile, entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly, mate. The true entrepreneur doesn't need to do that, do they? Yeah,
that's it. So, and then he talks about next about the feedback loop from hell. And I'd love for you to tie this back in as well, mate.
Well, it's just the next section that he says that, sometimes we want something our boss does that's just minuscule, minute, and we get angry about it. And then we realize that we're angry about this small, insignificant thing. And then we get angry that we got angry at such a small, insignificant thing. And then we're like, why the fuck are we angry? We get more angry. So it's just saying this feedback loop from hell, that just this downward negative spiral.
Absolutely. So when we're always expecting and wanting a really positive experience in reality, it actually ends up being a negative experience. And paradoxically, the acceptance of a negative experience in itself is a positive experience.
Yeah.
So realizing the world's cooked in some ways.
Don't expect everything to be perfect. He says that anything worthwhile is actually won through surmounting a negative experience. So it's like that battle. When you win the battle against a negative, it becomes positive. You can't just expect everything to be positive.
That's right, man. So now we're going to get cracked into the subtlety. So what is the subtle art of not giving a fuck?
That's it, man. Subtlety number 1, not giving a fuck doesn't mean being indifferent. It means being comfortable with being different.
Absolutely. So he talks about himself in third person here, and he says, damn, watch out, Mark Manson just don't give a fuck. We don't mean that Mark Manson doesn't care about anything. On the contrary, we mean that Mark Manson doesn't care about adversity in the face of his goal. So he's just talking himself up in third person. But basically, when you don't give a fuck and you're going for your goals, you don't give a fuck about all the other things. You're happy to punch someone in the face if that is required.
Yeah, maybe not that exact example, but metaphorically punch, yeah. So it's just saying that, you're not giving a fuck about nothing. It's not just being purely indifferent to everything in the world, but it's realizing that you don't have to give a fuck about the pain and struggle. You're willing to go through that stuff in order to get to what you do give a fuck about.
Absolutely. Subtlety number 2, to not give a fuck about adversity, you must first give a fuck about something more important than adversity.
That's it, man. So we need to find that something more important that we do give a fuck about. And once we found that something that that's fuck worthy, we can stop giving a fuck about anything else. Yeah,
absolutely. And then subtlety number 3, whether you realize it or not, you are always choosing what to give a fuck about.
That's it, man. So you can choose to give a fuck about getting a new TV, or you can choose to give a fuck about your co-workers gossiping, or you can choose to give a fuck about something more worthwhile. He says that finding something important and meaningful in your life is perhaps the most productive use of your time and energy. Find that one thing, give a fuck about it, and then give no fucks about anything else.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, easier said than done, man. It's it's tough finding out what the one thing is, what thing you got to prioritize. Yeah. And once you know what it is, it's
maybe it's easier to deprioritize all the other shit that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
and just not give fucks about it.
Yeah, that's it. So chapter 2 is happiness is a problem.
So he talks about how we don't want to have suffering. We don't want to have pain. But he says like pain and suffering, they're actually biological necessities. They're useful in that us experiencing suffering or pain is actually the biggest driver of action. So when we feel pain, we realize we don't want to do that again and we move away from that.
That's right. And then on the flip side of that, he says happiness comes from solving problems. And the key word here is solving. So I really like this. So if you're avoiding your problems or you feel like you don't have any problems, then you're going to make yourself really miserable. There's no kind of route to being happy.
Exactly, man. He says that, the pain and the suffering of the problem is what drives us towards the solving, which in turn leads to the happiness.
Yeah.
So there's always problems, and the higher you go up, the higher level of your problems. It's not like you solve one problem and you're done. There's always going to be a problem to solve. But the process of solving that problem is what leads to happiness.
Yeah, so when you set your priority and you set your big goals or whatever they might be, the journey toward those goals is what actually gives you the happiness.
Exactly, man. There's a few issues that people face along the way. The first issue is denial. So people deny that there are any problems in the first place. And then the second issue is a victim mentality. So when people see a problem, they think, oh no, I'm the victim of this problem, rather than realizing it's an opportunity to solve it on the way to happiness.
So a good example here would be like the law of attraction type of people. Like I went to a meetup in Melbourne. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but it's in this room, there was all these people visualizing Lamborghinis and all that. So they were all in this positive world and not looking at the negative. And the negative reality was they're all as poor as shit, poor as hell. So they denied it existed, so they couldn't really go anywhere from that. So all these law of attraction types really would be, never get anywhere closer to the Lamborghini than in their dreams. And also same the victim mentality, which doesn't really tie into that story much.
Well, they're always blaming other people or the environment or the government, or they're always blaming someone else, and they're the victim rather than taking responsibility.
Exactly. Thanks for that, mate.
You're on the right track, mate. Mate, another thing I like, he says that emotions are overrated. I just like this one small bit he talked about that, some people say that they're just driven by emotions, but he says that if you make all your decisions based on emotions, you're essentially either a 3-year-old dog or a 3-year-old kid or a dog. And he says that, you know what else 3-year-old kids and dogs do? They shit on the carpet. So you can't be just run by your emotions. You need to take responsibility for yourself rather than just, I punched a hole in the wall because I got so angry. Yeah, that's a very bad way to live your life.
Yeah, you got to be at least objective.
Yeah, exactly, man. Mate, he says you got to choose your struggle. He talks about his story, how he wants to be a rock star, but the reason he was being a rock star, he was focused on this image of what was going to appear at the summit. Whereas he was saying that the most important part is actually the climb itself. So it's not just all about the summit, it's about the climb.
Yeah, this is definitely my favourite part of the book, or the favourite takeaway. It's like in your life, you're going to be struggling no matter what you do. You're going to have some tough things no matter what. So you might as well make those tough things on the way to something bigger and something good in your life. So if you don't have any goals, you're going to have tough shit going on. You better have goals, and then your tough shit is in the direction of something positive in the world. Exactly,
man. He says that you can't just think that you're going to climb, you're going to solve one small problem and be happy and you can stop climbing. He says you're always climbing. It's always this upward spiral. And if you think you can stop climbing at some point, you're missing the point. The joy actually comes from the climb, which is that, solving the problems along the way.
Yeah.
Chapter 3, mate. You are not special.
Yeah, so unfortunately...
And that's you, a broad you, everyone. No one's special.
Oh, thanks, mate. I was worried for a second there. Just got that. But the first reason is, so people think that I'm awesome and the rest of you suck, so I deserve special treatment.
Yeah. Or the exact other way is they think that I suck and the rest of you are awesome, so I deserve special treatment. So both of these scenarios leads to this entitlement culture. Everyone, or not everyone, but someone thinks they're entitled to something. They think they're special, so they think they should get things their way. But really, you're not special. Everyone's average.
Exactly. So yeah, if you think that everyone else is so good and you're a piece of shit, you end up being a victim. And then, the other one, you just think you're the top dog going around when you're not. You're a piece of shit.
Exactly, man. Mate, that was about it for me from that chapter.
Yeah, so people who become great at something become great because they understand they're not that great. They're just average. And they could be so much better.
Yeah, that makes sense, I think. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, well, mate, you were saying earlier that before this you loved that, and I was the one who said it doesn't make sense.
No, I think it makes sense. I think that for you to get better at something, you need to admit that you're not good enough at it already in order to take action. To
the word I'd say is perfect rather than
you're
better.
Not perfect. Yeah.
Like I think LeBron James would say, understand he's good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But he would also understand he's not perfect, so there's room for improvement.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that as well. I think you're both right. You and Mark Manson, both right.
Thanks, mate.
Chapter 4, the value of suffering. We've talked about it a little bit already, but, and we've talked about it in other books previously, either Buddhist principles or Stoic philosophy, that suffering is inevitable, suffering's unavoidable. So what he says, instead of asking, how do I stop suffering? If you know it's inevitable, you need to realize, why am I suffering? What is the purpose for my suffering? And then choosing that purpose that's worth suffering for. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a bit early on this one, but yeah, it is my favourite part of the book. So you're going to suffer anyway. Make it worthwhile. You're going to go through shit in your 80 years of life. You might as well go through shit do some good shit in your time.
Mate, you didn't go early. The book's just repetitive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Mate, he talks about the self-awareness onion. And I like the analogy. He says that just like an onion, there's multiple layers. And just like an onion, the more layers deep you go, the more likely you are to start crying at inappropriate times.
Yes. So the first layer of this onion of emotions is simply understanding your emotions, right? So
yeah. So normally the stereotype for blokes is, you're sitting there in a hump, angry, and a woman says to you, "What's wrong?" And you say, "Oh, nothing's wrong." So that's like being completely unaware, whereas the first layer is to actually realize that you do have an emotion there.
Yeah, just understanding you're angry. So there's a little bit of objectivity there.
Yeah.
The second layer is the ability to ask why we feel certain emotions.
Yeah, that's it. That's slightly. So the first level is understanding your emotion. The next layer is asking why, and then the third layer, deeper, is realizing your personal values. And so he says that why do you consider what's happened to be a success or a failure, or why are you choosing to measure yourself in that way, or why are you judging yourself by everyone around you? So that's the deeper layer.
So we'll go with it. We'll keep this analogy, mate, and I'll throw you under the bus for the second layer. So the woman's angry at the man for being angry, and the second layer being ability to ask why he feels certain emotions. So why is he angry?
Mate, so he might be angry that his brother didn't text him that day. Yeah. And that's why he's angry.
And then the third is in the context of personal values.
Yeah. So his personal values is that he wants to be close with his brother. Okay, so that's his value. His value is that he wants to be close with his brother. Now, the issue here is that he's probably using he's got the right value, but he's got the wrong metric to measure that value. So his metric to measure, am I close with my brother, is texting him every single day.
Yeah.
Whereas that might not be the best metric to use. And maybe his brother was busy that day. He had a lot on. Just because you didn't text him doesn't mean that he's gone against his value and that they're not close anymore. So a better metric might be, the number of times you meet up for a face-to-face dinner, or the number of times you go away on a week-long trip together or something, rather than texting every day.
Absolutely. So the person who understands that third layer of understanding really while they're angry, they're living a completely different life on another planet than the person just sitting there, the first layer, just understanding, I'm fucking angry.
Exactly, man.
Pissed off.
And so there's sort of the two keys to it. One is your value. So you got to choose your value. So you got to assess what your current values are and what your future values should be. And then the next is, from each of those values, what metric do you use to measure it? And is the metric you're using the best way to measure it, or is it just the easiest way to measure it?
So you get to understand where you're going and if you're making progress, which is big.
Mate, he's got a couple of shitty values here.
Yeah, these are the things you don't want. So some shitty values is things like pleasure, material success, always being right, and just staying positive.
That's it, man. Obviously, you can't always be positive. There's going to be negative times. So if your value is to always stay positive, you're setting yourself up for failure. And the same as always being right. That's not a good value to have, because sometimes it's good to be wrong so you can learn.
And if you're all about pleasure, you're just going around having cocaine and smoking ciggies all day.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're all about material success, we've covered a few times this idea of the hedonic treadmill.
Yeah.
So it's a never-ending treadmill where you're always just going for more, and you never really get sated, and you're on a never-ending treadmill of shit.
I love it, mate. So he says that these values, it's all about prioritization. There's so many values that we could choose. It's about prioritizing the ones that we should choose. Did I say should? I meant could.
Yeah.
Could and should.
Yeah. We'll bring the fucks back in. So we haven't said a fuck in a while.
Yeah.
So when we essentially give a fuck about something, we're really prioritizing the things we want to give a fuck about.
That's it, man. He says in a nutshell, what he views as self-improvement is just prioritizing and choosing what to give a fuck about. That's his true self-improvement. Mate, so that's the first 4 chapters. The next 5 chapters probably could be a one chapter with 5 subparts.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like the 5 things that he says now should be like the values that we should be choosing, yeah.
We'll get into our thoughts on the book at the very end, but I feel like the first bit was the part of the from the original blog post that went viral.
Yeah.
And the next chapters were the publisher saying, "Come on, Mark, you need a 200-page book, mate. Give us another 100 pages." So he just like fleshed out stuff.
I agree. There's a little bit of rambling, a bit of ranting, but mate. So chapter 5, you're always choosing, and it's all about this taking responsibility.
And this is a very popular concept, a very good concept from a lot of books. It's like this idea of, Jocko Willink is another guy. We haven't reviewed his books yet, but extreme ownership. If there's shit going down in the world, if you're able to take responsibility and take ownership, then you've actually got some power over the situation.
Yes.
The other side, if you're a victim, you got no power over anything, and you end up being an idiot.
Very true, man. Also, it came up in 7 Habits and 12 Rules for Life that we can't control what happens, but we can control how we react. So that's what we can take responsibility for. You can't take responsibility for everything that happens in the world, but you can take responsibility for how you interpret it and how you respond to it. So that's what we've got to take responsibility for. That's what we've got to choose. We've got to choose our response, and we've got to choose how we interpret it.
Yeah, in that circle of influence versus circle of concern.
Yeah.
You're better off just worrying about the things you can actually influence. You know, the chick throwing the kid off the bridge in the Bahamas. It doesn't really affect you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But if that's happening, which is a lot of the news just searches for this bad stuff around the world, you know, it is sad and it can get you down. You might as well just not worry about that stuff. It don't concern you.
That's it. Yeah. I liked it.
Mate,
so the next chapter, it says, you are wrong about everything, but so am I.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you've got to be careful what you believe, and that, you know, essentially, he tells a story of, you know, right now, looking back to past Mark, he realised he made some bad choices based on his poor beliefs. But he also got to realise that future Mark is going to look back at present Mark, who thinks he's got the best values possible, and realise that maybe they weren't so good.
Yeah, that's right. And there's this, he brings in this idea of false memories, and it's like the game Chinese Whispers. I don't know if around the world they call it Chinese Whispers as well.
That's what I was. Man, he calls it telephone, and I thought maybe
telephone game.
Maybe Chinese Whispers is faux pas, mate. Maybe it's a racist thing now.
I don't know. I hope not, because it's a funny
deeper
game. Anyway, it's this idea. So if you go around a circle, the first person you tell is, you know, one word, and then by the time it gets around the other 10, it's something completely different. Yeah. And he's got an example.
It's a good, like, grade 4, grade 5 game. It's good fun.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I still love playing it. It's good. But yeah, he's got this.
Were you, quick side note, were you one of those guys who intentionally fucked it up? There's definitely guys who would definitely just make it something completely different. Yeah.
Oh, 100%, that was you, man. Well, we were just talking before this podcast of, I remember seeing a dog having sex with another dog, and 10 years, and I swear to God, my memory right now is the dogs were having sex bum to bum, back to back, and they stayed there for an hour. I don't know if that's...
Why were you watching it for so long?
No, I went and had a coffee and I came back and they were still sitting there.
Mate, I thought dogs rooted doggy style. I assume that's where it comes from.
It could be a false memory.
Yeah.
But it's this idea that your brain, as you retell a story over time, the memory gets distorted.
Yes.
You know, and then one day you have 10 beers and you retell the story, and then the next day it's a drunken revised edition of this memory.
The story's a little bit different.
And by the time it comes to the end, it's a completely different memory.
Exactly,
and it's false. Man. So you're absolutely wrong, like he says in the chapter.
Yeah. And so just to tie it back, and obviously what he's saying is that, you know, our beliefs are always wrong. We've got all of us have got our own subjective view of reality, and we're pretty much all wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah.
He's got 3 questions to help you. So you can ask yourself, is it possible if I'm wrong? And number 2, if I'm wrong, what would it mean? And number 3, which causes a bigger problem, being right or being wrong?
Yeah, that's it, man. I think, and the answer to 1 is almost always yes. Like, it is possible that you're wrong. Like, having so much certainty is definitely a bad thing. You need to realise that maybe you could be wrong.
Uncertainty, yeah. Embracing this uncertainty is a bit harder and takes a bit more balls and being less of a little bitch.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it's going to give you more value.
Definitely. Chapter 7, mate. Failure is the way forward. Probably not anything new.
Yep. So you've chosen this pain, what you're going to suffer about in your life, and the way forward is keeping on failing, which takes pain, but over time you are going to grow and do better, really.
Yeah, mate. He says the example of, say, you know, a young child trying to learn to walk. The first time they get up, they stand up and they fall straight down. So they've essentially failed at walking. The baby doesn't ever think, walking's not for me. I'm not good at it. I'm not going to try. Failure is part of the journey towards success, because they'll start to learn what works and what doesn't work, and through failure, move forward towards actually walking.
Yeah, that's it.
Mate, the only thing I liked from this chapter was the do something principle. He says that action is not only an effect of motivation, it's actually also a cause of it. So normally we think we get this emotional inspiration, which leads to a motivation, which then leads to action. But what he says, it's more of essentially a cycle, in that doing action and feeling good leads to more emotional inspiration, and in turn more motivation, in turn more action. This positive feedback loop.
Yeah, I like that. So just in action, you know, if you're worried about not being motivated, maybe start doing something,
Exactly.
and then motivation will be derived from that.
Exactly, man. Because it's like these three things: inspiration, motivation, action, all loop around. If you think I've got no motivation, rather than starting there, start with action, and action then will loop back around.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
Chapter 8 was the importance of saying no. We just got a little cheeky pupper.
Yeah.
And it's, he says there is increased opportunities and upside in rejecting alternatives and distractions in favor of what truly matters.
Yeah, nice.
So when you're rejecting stuff, it might seem like you're rejecting opportunities, but in reality, you are taking in more opportunities. So it's another one of those dichotomies that kind of contradict each other, but are related and opposites.
Yeah, definitely, man. Mate, you got to say no to the things you don't give a fuck about in order to then have more options of what to give a fuck about. Yeah.
And mate, finally, chapter 9.
Mate,
Pun.
And
it's huge in Stoicism. The understanding impermanence really is not about death. It's more about living. And do you still have that app, Days of Life?
Yeah, it hasn't been giving me notifications. I might have to flick it back on.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think I've got about 20,500 days of life left or something.
Mate, you got me by a fair margin there. But I understand that, the days left, you got limited days left. You're really going to prioritise.
Exactly. It says that we generally, most, day to day, we pretty much forget that we're going to die. And it's not until someone does die that it brings home that we are going to die at some point. Whereas he's saying that we should be constantly thinking about it as a way to live better, act better throughout our life.
So that's it. Have you got any other juice?
No, that's enough juice from that one, mate.
Yep.
So overall, man, it's a super popular book. I think it's 2016. I think it was first printed, and it seems to have got into the top 10 and stayed there ever since. Personally, I didn't find there was much new content. And I didn't find that it was extremely well written either in terms of the reading experience.
Yeah, it's really the most interesting part of the book for me was how it's been number one for so long.
Man, I was trying to think, okay, is it because we've read, 100 books that we've heard it all before and there's really nothing new? Is it for someone, if it's their very first book, maybe they do learn some really cool shit, and maybe because it is such a no-nonsense, cheeky, conversational, straight to the point with a lot of fucks in there that might be an easy way to start reading. Man, I think a big part is it's a big fluoro orange cover. There's a big fuck in the middle of the cover as well. So I think that once it got into the top 10 and once it got onto the bookshelves, everyone looked at it and was like, oh, this book with a big fuck and a big orange cover, that sounds really cool. And they buy it, which bumps it up the order again. So I think there's definitely a fair bit of
we were saying earlier, and the bit of the purple cow factor, definitely. It's probably easy to sneeze and spread the idea because it's got a fuck in there, which is a bit different.
And even, you're sitting on the train, fluoro orange cover and a big fuck on the front. Someone can just see attention. It's
Yeah, so we've been debilitating off behind the scenes about how it got up there.
Mate, so overall, I'm going to say it's about a 5 out of 10 for me, just because there wasn't a whole lot of new stuff, and the stuff that was there was solid stuff, but a lot of fluff.
The book got very famous from a blog post, which I assume is about 2,000 words, which is probably an incredible 2,000 words.
Yeah.
Went to a publisher who said, blow this balloon up into 100,000 words. And so there's 98,000 words of crap in there for a bit of gold. So go to the blog post.
Yeah. Mate, subtle art.
I don't give a fuck about this book.